Okay. Hey, everyone. I am here with Kelly, and we are going to talk about one of my favorite podcasts. And let's get into it, as they say on the Pete and Sebastian show. But I was telling Kelly about it because we were talking about our favorite podcasts, and one that I really like a lot and have been listening to, well, just for a couple of years, I guess, maybe a year and a half, is the Pete and Sebastian show. The reason why I got into that one is because I was a fan of Sebastian Maniscalco. Started off as a stand-up comedian, and he had this YouTube video that went viral. And I remember just cracking up the whole time because he talks about things that, we do now that we don't do now that we did back, in the 80s growing up, where people would come over the house and you'd be so excited people are coming over, and now he's like, now people come over and you go, did anybody tell anybody we were home? Duck, and
Yeah.
he does this whole, pretty much went viral. And then I totally forgot about him. And then a friend of mine, Debbie, we were in Palm Springs and she was playing his Netflix special. And I was like, oh my God, that's that comedian. He's so funny. I didn't realize he'd become very famous, So anyway, I saw him, one of his podcasts on my phone. I was like, oh my God, I got to check it out. So it's Pete Correale, which is his friend. And they've been, I tried to find out how long they've been doing it. And I cannot figure out how long they've been doing it, because he was joking one time, and I thought they said they were doing it for like 10 years, but I think he was joking, because I was trying to look up and see when they started. I think it's been for at least 3 or 4 years though. And
If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it.
4 years
Thanks.
though. And the other day when I was listening to one of their podcasts, he was like, and yet we have still not cracked the top 100, but it's because, Sebastian's so famous now that they're getting a lot of eyeballs and listeners to their podcast. But Pete's funny too. Pete Correale, he's a stand-up, and he wrote for Kevin Can Wait, which was a show that was on for about a season or two. And he's also acted. And I've come to appreciate his humor too. And my friend Sandy and I were going to go see him at this month, actually, in downtown LA. We're going to go see him at the Regent. I think it's the Regent Theater. So I'm excited to go see him. But yeah, so I know that when I, told you about it, you were kind of like, I don't know if I quite think they're very funny. So you want to tell me what you thought? You're like, you said what you said, and I quote was like, if they can make it, so can we.
That's literally how I felt when I watched it, because it's not my cup of tea at all. Because you and I, we have guests on and we talk about topics and things. We don't sit and, hey, Kimbra, what'd you do today?
What's your no? This Kelly, is what you say. What's your take?
Yeah, what's your take on today? Or what my life's not that exciting enough, and I don't think theirs is either. So that's why the just conversation about what they did today, it wasn't interesting to me, and I don't think they're that funny. But now, if he was doing a comedy routine, I probably would think he was really funny, but I didn't find it
entertaining,
interesting or entertaining.
That's okay. I was telling Kelly though that I've had a boyfriend or two that remind me of Sebastian, because that same kind of old school Italian, take on things. And they feel part of their humor is they feel like they're educating the public. That's what they always do. Like, like, I took my boy to this thing, and, what's your take? Should he do this, or should he do that? Do that, and then they'll go back and forth about it and stuff, and they're like, see, people, we're educating the public on how you behave, because they have this whole thing about how that people don't have manners anymore. And, like Sebastian's always talking about like people dress like slobs and just, so they have these little things, these little quirks and life lessons they talk about. But I so understand their, sense of humor. That's why I just laugh. Now, mind you, like I said, I don't know if I would have gone there if I hadn't first heard about Sebastian. I might have never tuned into that podcast. But since I'm such a big fan of his, but I just saw his last Netflix special, and, I hope he doesn't get mad, but if he hears this, I didn't think it was his.
Well, don't worry. He's not gonna mind.
No, let's only hope that we have that problem, right? That I no, he's still funny. It's just that when you get married and you have kids, it's like a whole new set of humor that is not as funny to me as the like his everyday take on life, So I really, really enjoy his stuff. Like when he talks about just going out, and his whole thing is like observations on, at the airport or at the this or in that, and he has a whole thing what he does with his father. That's really, really, he always talks about his father because his father's Sicilian, and he's always like saying how he said he does this whole funny routine about where his dad comes home, and he says he was like 8 years old, and he's like, start a business. What are you doing? It's like, he always goes on about how immigrants are so, like they, work ethic, and what other things that are fun. And he's also got a new TV show coming on HBO Max. It's called How to Be a Bookie, I believe. It's a Chuck Lorre show, who did Two and a Half Men. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Then he's got a movie with Kim Cattrall and Robert De Niro plays his father. Oh. He did a movie. He wrote it. It's called About My Father, because a lot of his humor is about his father and his old school Sicilian ways and the things that he does and says even now. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And so he's kind of broke into the big time, so that's why Pete's always like, you're up there with Chappelle, because they both have that sort of East Coast Italian, thing. And so I guess, like I said, I just enjoy it for a release. I listen to him in the bath when I'm about to go to bed.
And that's, there's a place for that. I mean, it's just background noise or entertainment. That's what I said to you too. I said, it's kind of good background noise, but anyway, just not my cup of tea, but I'm sure they're, obviously they have a huge audience.
Yeah.
Who am I to criticize them?
Well, I mean, because humor is subjective anyway. So it's like what you think is funny and what I think is funny won't always be the same thing. Right. And but yeah, I really enjoy that podcast a lot because it's just I can just things they say, I can hear people I know.
Well, and maybe I didn't listen to it enough either. I listened to a couple of them and I just couldn't get into it because it took too long to get to something funny. It was like,
right.
How was your day? What'd you do? Well, I went down to the corner store and I bought a lollipop, and then there was this dog. It was just like so mundane. I'm like, get to it. Maybe I'm too
impatient.
Everybody has ADD now because of the internet.
Oh, maybe
faster. Maybe. And to me, I was like impatient. I wanted them to get to something, a story or something funny or quicker.
Yeah, I mean, Sebastian talks a lot about like he performed at the 9/11 memorial, Ground Zero memorial, and he was the stand-up, and he was talking about how he went and you have to sit with people that hire you, and he said, try being funny after they're showing all these 9/11 things, and he was just like, and he said he went up to give his do his spiel, right, and he said that afterwards he had to go back to the table where all the big wigs were sitting, and he said usually people say like, hey, nice job, or good going. He said not one person said anything as he went back to it. He was like, I think I just bombed, so
it just doesn't sound appropriate. If you're at a 9/11 memorial, why would you hire a comedian?
Well, I think they wanted some kind of levity and not for it just to be like all about which I understand that too, but that's like a hard gig. I mean, and not everybody could do that gig because he's probably used to he doesn't know.
New York Italian, right? Or at least he talks like he is
from Chicago, from outside Chicago. But yeah, so but yeah, he talks a lot about he's very honest. And I was saying to you the other day, in the beginning when we first started doing our podcast, I was like, always wanting to be perfect and always having my facts right. And sometimes I do have my facts, and then I don't know, it just goes out of my head. I get nervous or something and I forget I said the wrong thing. But after I was watching their podcast, I was like, they make it entertaining. They often say the wrong things, but yet they just it's entertaining to me, that they don't know all the facts and they say things wrong a lot, or they don't know a lot of things too. And so it made me feel more comfortable about not always being so perfect. And
it's about being real, and that's why podcasts have become popular, whereas talk shows they're so short, and they've got the questions all prepared ahead of time, and
right.
Where a podcast is a conversation, and it's more the people are genuine, they're real, they're talking about things, and if you don't know something, that's part of it. Who's going to know everything? And you let the conversation kind of flow organically, and
right.
And I mean, there's something to be said for that Pete and Sebastian are able to do that.
And well, and I think, and consistently
there. That's nice,
And I thought about that too. Like, why does Pete want to still keep doing this when he's got all these, things going on? And it's probably because it gives him a vehicle to maybe connect with his friend, but also they both get to talk about stuff they're doing. Like I told you, Pete's going to be out here doing a comedy thing. So it gives him a little platform to promote things they're doing. But sometimes I think to myself, is Sebastian because I know I do a lot of things, but I'm always like, is he over? Because he's got another one called Daddy and Doctor and Daddy, Doctor versus Daddy, where it's the doctor, and then he talks about like old school remedies his family used to do. And is that right? Or is it really, is that weird? Like he would talk about old school remedies that his parents would do, like, he didn't say this, but like, for example, rub Vicks Vapor Rub all over your chest, that was a remedy that everybody, is that really a good remedy, or is that just some kind of old school thing that our parents did, And so it's kind of and then someone calls in and asks questions like, my kid does this. And so that's one
a
thing.
New what is it? A show?
I think it's Daddy. It's a podcast. I believe it's a podcast.
And who's doing it?
It's Sebastian and his doctor, his pediatrician.
He is doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's doing. I think it's called Daddy versus Doctor, and he does that one. And then he had a cooking show for a while, and I don't know if that's still going on. And then he's got Pete and Sebastian, and then he's got this new show called How to Be a Bookie, which is going to be on HBO. This is like a promo for Sebastian Maniscalco. But anyway, so I think, God, he's like overextended. That's the word I'm always thinking. Is he like overextended? But I think he just wants to stay busy and like just make hay while the sun shines or something like that. What's that expression? Like get it while you can.
While you're hot.
Right.
Yeah.
And that movie.
Well, I will pay attention a little more and maybe listen to a couple more podcasts, because I respect your opinion, and we'll see if if I can see the show or something. Like I said, I just couldn't get into the day-to-day mundane.
Stuff. Yeah.
And that's why I said to you, I go, Kimbra, if they can make it, then we should be doing a lot better.
He was in Sebastian was also in Green Book and The Irishman. He was had a featured part in both of those movies. So Green Book's really good. Both of those movies are good, but Green Book was really good. So if you ever get a chance to check it out, excuse me. But he's a really talented guy, and he just, like I said, the last Netflix special wasn't my favorite, but I still think he's really good. But it's just that, for me, humor, I can't relate because I'm not married and I don't have kids, so it wasn't as funny to me. But then people that are married with kids probably think it's funnier, so but for me, I just love his take on when he goes he's got observational humor, kind of like Seinfeld, like, and the play on words and the play on the situations. And he's I follow him on Instagram too, and it was so funny because he was in front of, I think, the Laugh Factory, and this is an interesting take that we can learn from, but he was in front of the Laugh Factory with his kid, and he was saying, he goes, I was here like, I don't know, I think 5-7 years ago, and got turned down they didn't hire him to do a show or something, or he didn't make the cut, right? And he said, and here I am, his big billboard was on the side going, what's the name of his last, I don't know, his last Netflix special, the name of it, but it was on the side of the Laugh Factory. And he was like, see, people, just goes to show you.
Don't
You
give
know,
up. Never give
you
up.
know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I felt like I said, I follow him on Instagram. So he's always showing his house. He lives, I think, in Gwen Stefani's old house. He talks about it, you know, so it's a really cool house. And he's always he talks about food and how, you know, he's constant struggle with trying to stay thin, you know, and stuff. So it's funny. I just find him funny. His face is funny. The expressions that he makes. But like, he reminds me of an old boyfriend, the one you know, but that same kind of humor, a little bit old school.
Oh yeah, the voice too, the way he would talk, and
People,
old
you know.
school Italian. Oh, that's funny.
I know. So, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to going to see Pete, though. He's going to be, like I said, downtown LA, and my friend and I are going, and one of my friends that's coming with me, she's like, he's cute about Pete, right? And I was like, he is good looking, but he's married, you know. But she thought he was really cute, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's about it. So I'm sorry that you didn't find it as entertaining, but if you give it another shot, maybe send you another one.
But still, we recommend that people check
Yes.
it out, because a lot of people might like it.
Yeah, if you like that kind of humor, you will like it. But you know, it's like it's just talking about their day, and like I said, they always, or their week, or whatever big thing that happened that month. And Pete will talk about a lot of times all of his shows that he does, because he still drives all around the country doing stand-up, and he'll just talk about, you know, things that happened when he, you know, driving through to another state and situations that he gets in. And he's funny too. He's really funny. And so it was an interesting episode the other day, because Sebastian was talking about how his wife scraped up their car. And he was like, what's your take on this? You know, he goes like, Lana scraped up the car really bad, and this is like the third time in 3 months. And he goes, I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't answer her phone call, you know, because she kept calling and calling, you know. And Pete's like, man, he goes, that's some mob shit right there. He goes, he's like, you're acting like a mobster, you know, because he's like, you wouldn't talk to your wife. He goes, yeah, but it's 3 times in, you know, 3 months. He's like, my insurance is I got canceled, you know.
So you're making me laugh telling this story more than I do.
Well, I'm like recapping, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting more to the punchline, right?
Yes.
But it was just funny because Pete's always like, that's a mob shit right there.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, and not answering the phone when your wife calls because you're so mad.
Yeah.
I think that's a good lesson for a husband, because don't answer and yell at her, just don't answer.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. He goes, I can't take it, you know, because he does this whole routine about how she's like, it's just a little graze. I just grazed it, you know, and then he goes out there and it's like the whole side of the car is dented in, you know. And I'm like, I can relate. No. But anyway,
driving lessons.
I know, right? So anyway, are there any comedy podcasts that you do like? Can you think of any off the top of your head?
No, it's at this stage of life. Like I can watch a good comedic movie. But I just really, you know, maybe
you want more educational.
I'm trying because I'm so busy too, trying to fit so many things in, that when I am available or to listen to a podcast or something, I always want it to be some kind learning something intellectual that makes me think and moves me. So I don't really listen to any.
And Sebastian are not, they always joke. I mean, they're both really smart, but they always joke around about, like, you know, he down, what is the word when you're self-deprecating? They have very self-deprecating humor, you know, so they're always making fun, like saying, you know, like he always says, you know, me and my wife, we don't get things. We go to movies. He's like, do you get this? And she's like, no. He goes, we both don't get it. He's like, usually with a couple, there's one that's more intellectual than the other. Right. He goes, no,
they
we're both
to each other.
Yeah. He goes, we're both the same. We don't get it. You know?
See, you're hysterical. You're making me laugh about it. But yeah, listening.
It just takes too long.
Again, I just maybe couldn't get into it because I didn't listen long enough or whatever. But I just thought of it. Joe Rogan's a very successful comedian too.
He did stand up. Did he do stand up?
He's huge. He's done HBO specials and everything. Yeah.
I never saw him do a special
comedic career. And that's another thing that he really loves, but he's not really funny on his podcast. He's not at all.
Yeah, he's very serious.
So I don't know, I'm just more serious. I just like more intellectual kind of stimulating, thought-provoking.
Right.
But you know, if you catch me with a really good, and I expect more.
If I catch you with a margarita,
I need
then
smart comedy. It's got to be really, I don't know, clever.
witty. Well, like I said, I find Sebastian. I haven't seen Pete, to be honest with you, do stand up, and I'm going to see it. Like I said, this month. But Sebastian, I do find observational humor very funny too. And Sebastian's very physical. He's kind of like a Seinfeld, where Seinfeld will take little situations and riff on it. He does the same thing, except he's very physical. He does all these really physical things. Like, I can't even go into it right now, but it's like he'll imitate people. And I was watching one of his specials with Joan, and she was like, God, I'm just exhausted watching him, So you don't see that on the podcast, but when he does his comedy specials, he's very, he imitates dancing, and you could tell he's a dancer and he likes to work out and stuff. So he's very physical. Yeah. So it is witty in that sense, because he observes things that, I always think that's what comedy is. It's you observe things that people just kind of like take for granted, and then you do, then you make it into humor, and that's the art of it. Right. But because comedy is so subjective, what I think is funny.
Yeah, I don't like silly comedy. I've never liked Jim Carrey's movies. I like him, but I've never liked any of his movies. I just don't like that silly kind of humor. But you have made me laugh describing it, because it's been cute and funny, and the situations are funny, situational comedies.
Yeah. Well, it's getting to but I guess getting say to Jim Carrey, I remember, gosh, it was long time ago. I was on a road trip, and it was really hot. We were in Arizona, and we were like, let's go into the movies because it was really hot. So we went to see this Jim Carrey movie. It was God, what was that one that made him so famous? Something about pets. Pet Detective. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Okay. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this sounds so dumb. And it's like, I didn't want it, but it was hot. So I thought in the theater, be air conditioning, right? So I laughed my butt off, because I guess I wasn't a big fan of that kind of humor too at the time, but I just, he made me laugh because his talent, because the faces and the contortions and the things he does, I was like, who can do that kind of thing? But then again, I'm not so into the Three Stooges and stuff, and I know a lot of people are. So it just depends, it just depends on the bit, and it depends on my mood, But right. I remember after I saw Ace Ventura, I was like, oh my God, he is just so. And I got to work with him, with I did the very last episode of In Living Color, where I played a white Diana Ross. They did this whole makeup thing, and I was in makeup for like 3 hours. And he was already a big star. And I remember he kept coming in and, going, is it time for me yet? Is it time for me? Because he was getting his makeup done after me. Right. And he, like I said, that show had already been on the air, and he was a big star, and, and he was so nice to me. He was like, oh, you look great. And he didn't tell her to rush. He was just like, just, take your time. But he was taking a long time with my makeup, because I was supposed to be a white Diana Ross. So they had to do this hair thing, put all this makeup on. And so, anyway, I'll just never forget that. I thought, God, he was such a nice guy, because I could tell that he'd really worked hard. And, when you hear about his life story, Jim Carrey, like the things that how he grew up, and, they were like homeless for a little while. And he just, I got
like an awesome guy,
yeah,
and a great guy. And he's very talented. I'm not criticizing what he's done. He's done a lot of great stuff, but that kind of humor just never
doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't hit your funny bone. But and now he's like such a deep thinker too, Jim Carrey. And most people that are comedians, I find, though, do have that other side. Deep. Yeah. And like he's done a lot of he paints, and he always makes his paintings kind of intellectual, political.
Well, in order to see humor in everyday life, you have to be a deep thinker, because you have to think beyond the surface. Right. And so I think that's why a lot of comedians are really deep and smart. very
And
intelligent.
also want to be dramatic actors too. A lot of times we don't like to accept them. Like I know Jim Carrey, he was really good in the Truman Show, but a lot of people don't want to accept comedians, especially if you're really successful. They're like, oh, stick with comedy. But most comedians really do want to do, because they have that other side, comedy and tragedy. It's it's the yin and the yang thing, right?
Yeah. And comedy, they say, is so much harder than drama. That's why a lot of dramatic actors too, they want to lighten up and do comedy. And you've even said that. You said the drama sucks the emotional life out of you, where for you, comedy's more fun. When you're finished, you're more high than depressed, because a heavy drama makes you kind of brings you down.
Yeah, because comedy, it's light, it's funny, you're laughing. So, you don't.
It's hard.
But it's hard. Yeah. Well, it's the timing. It's the it's like who was it? Laurence Olivier said that acting. Wait, comedy is hard. Oh, I forgot what the expression is now. It's something about dying. Death is easy. Comedy is hard. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's because, like I said, because not everybody thinks the same things are funny.
Yeah.
It's the timing. It's the delivering of the lines. But I
think
reading.
it's amplifying things.
Mm-hmm,
the real, whatever's real, it just amplifies. Because I remember when I was going to acting school, I'm not funny. I've never tried to be or anything. My sense of humor is very dry, just very, very sarcastic and dry. And I remember doing a scene where I was crying, that we were doing improv and my dog had died. And I was crying and I was wailing, and like literally like tears are just pouring out of my eyes, and I'm crying my eyes out. And the critique I got from the teacher was, well, if that was a Lucy show, that would have been really good. He said, but it was way over the top for drama, Paul.
He thought it was over the top for drama.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
it
funny.
was actually my heart is broken because my dog, died. Yeah. And he's telling me it was funny. It was like comedic to watch. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I learned, I hit on that, and I learned, and I remember doing other scenes and people would go, how do you do that? Like I'd have a love scene with some gross guy, in acting class. And I would make it so realistic, funny, realistically funny. And they'd go, how do you do that? And I'm like, I just went over the top. I just went way beyond what I could actually feel.
Right. That's true.
So I learned that, that for that kind of, there's different kind of comedy too. But I'll never forget that. I wasn't meaning to be funny at all. And, here I'm crying my eyes out. And my teacher's like, yeah, that would have been good if it was on a Lucy show.
That's so funny. I was showing this little kid the other day about I Love Lucy, because she had that one about the English. I told you I was helping those kids with English, right? And I showed them the episode where she she makes fun of Ricky, and she's like, okay, Shakespeare, read this book for me, And then he keeps repeating words that end with O-U-G-H, and he'll say bow, and then he goes to cough, and he's like, cow. She goes, no, it's O-U-G-H is cough, and he's like, English, it's ridiculous. And he throws the book. It's like, in Spanish, everything's spelled the same. It's written the same. You say it the same. Anyway, I was showing it to one of the kids, and I could tell they were not getting it. It was just funny because I'm like, this is a classic episode.
Yeah, the play on language is a good one.
But anyway, so like I said, humor, it's all subjective. But Pete and Sebastian, I'm a big fan. I'm a fangirl, as they say, right? And so hopefully you guys will crack the top 10 in the next 6 months. Hopefully we will crack the top 100 soon.
How about 1,000?
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So, but we do recommend Pete and Sebastian for people to check it out, because a lot of people will like it.
Yes. I recommend them highly.
Funny.
Yeah.
And I want to see I want to see their routine.
Yeah.
Just their podcast. I want to see a routine. So,
well, I could send you what I think is one of Sebastian's one of his funniest things. And Pete, like I said, I haven't seen him yet, but I will be seeing him this month in downtown LA. So I'm looking forward to it. Right. And I'll let you know after the show how it was.
Yay. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so we will see you next time, but we do recommend Pete and Sebastian. Check it out. And thanks for tuning in, watching us, listening.
And stay with Kellie and Kimbra in the moment.
Yes.
We have a lot of interesting guests coming up and some fun things. And Please feel free to make comments and let us know if you want to hear any more
Reviews.
yeah, or whatever we've done that someone might like that we can do more of, because we've done such a wide variety of different things. So yeah, please share.
Yeah, we want to know what your favorites have been, and if you want to hear more of a certain kind of a thing,
and maybe what you think of Pete and Sebastian.
Yeah, we want to know that too. But keep it clean. Well, theirs is pretty clean, Pete and Sebastian. They don't, we were talking about others that like cuss and stuff. They don't. So yeah, they keep it, they're kind of, like I said, that old school Las Vegas kind of like, you don't talk like that,
Funny.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.